Hi everyone. Honestly, today I'm super duper excited. I always say this, but this time I am because this topic, I'm just so invested in this topic and I'm so interested. And the woman that I have, she's actually a superwoman. You guys know how obsessed I am with myself, right? And I always like to talk about myself, but this woman, I have actually become a fan. I'm actually kind of doing this intro again. So I recorded it first, and then we had so many IT issues, and then I started talking to her. I got a bit flustered initially because of the stupid IT issues. It was because of me. I take full responsibility, but nobody's complaining. Okay. I had to redo this so I feel better. Like I had to do introduction again of the superwoman just so it's just and it's fair. So today we have Nat. She is two times best-selling author. She's a podcast host. She's got her own podcast, The Wellness Collective. She's a natural fertility practitioner. Like I said, she's a superwoman. She's got her own clinic in Melbourne. It's called the Pagola Tree. She is an advocate of natural medicine, and she does that through acupuncture and very similar beliefs as I have. So, that's all that matters. As long as her beliefs they match with mine, that's all that matters. And that's all we're gonna go by. And she has a different line of natural products as well. I'll share her link, website's link, and you guys can check it out. We've just to let you guys know, we've actually recorded the full episode. I just had to redo this intro. I think I'm gonna share the intro that I did initially towards the end, just so these guys know what I'm talking about, how bad it was. And I still don't understand why she didn't hang up on me. So I still don't understand, but thank you so much, Nat.
Thank you so much for having me. That was an epic introduction. I feel
You
like you've
reckon?
done that before. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. So lovely to be here and so lovely to meet you.
How are you doing? I've heard on your Instagram stories that you've got COVID.
This is true. We have got COVID. We're okay now. It was a fairly interesting few days, but I think we're through the worst of it now. So
Were you
thankfully,
feeling it? Were you feeling it? Were you feeling all the symptoms?
I had really odd symptoms. I had sciatic pain and pain in my legs, and I had pain in my eyes.
Really?
Whereas my husband went straight to respiratory symptoms, where I didn't really get many. I've got a bit of feel a bit in the back of my throat, but the only other thing that we've all got consistently is that we can't smell.
Really?
At
I
all. Not a single
I
thing. It's the
wonder.
weirdest thing.
Yeah, I wonder how would how would one feel if you can't smell? That would be such a weird feeling.
Well, you also don't then want to eat if you can't smell, because you can't really taste. Like you can kind of taste, but you can't really taste. So it's been an interesting week. And I cooked dinner tonight for the first time in a week. And we all kind of just looked at it. I made homemade pizza.
I saw
We
it.
all
Yeah.
kind of just looked at it and went, oh, okay. And there's still a whole pizza out there. So anyway, we're definitely feeling better. That's the main
That's good.
thing. And I think that the rest will follow. But we did everything that we knew that we could do to support our immune systems and as much as possible. And I think part of it's just up to, I think sometimes these things are a little bit luck of the draw, as well as combined with a good immune system. So
Absolutely.
thankfully it's over.
No problem. Well, I wish you all the best, and I wish you a speedy recovery to you and your family.
Thank you.
No problem. Now, I'm just super duper excited about today's topic because we'll be discussing hormones. I had so many questions when I posted on my Instagram that we'll be discussing hormones. Like, first of all, I have so many questions, and then my followers, like, they were sending so many questions. So, thank you so much for doing this. Let's just straight jump into it.
Love that.
Okay, so first of all, what causes hormonal imbalances?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's such a common, I think, look, we've all blamed it on our hormones, right? We've all said, oh my
Yes,
goodness, I am so hormonal. But we don't even know what that means, right? Like no one's actually taken the time to work out what that is. We just like to blame it on something or someone that we know, probably our partner, our other half, or our mum, or somebody likes to say, are you due for something? Are you feeling a bit hormonal? But I don't think we've actually really put a lot of thought into what that means. And, I mean, our body relies on hormones, which are chemical messengers to get a task done. And as women, the ones that we're mostly talking about are our sex hormones and our stress hormones and how they play out against each other. And of course, you've got other hormones. You've got, dopamine, and you've got serotonin, and you've got other feel-good hormones. You've got hormones to sleep. You've got hormones for everything. But when it comes to being a woman, the ones that we're most interested in are the ones that dictate our menstrual cycle and our moods. But then that all flows into our behaviors, our sleep. Everything is controlled by our hormones. And then to amplify that, as women, we have cycles, we have menstrual cycles. So I think the trickiest part is that there's not a single day of your menstrual cycle that is the same. And so how you feel on any given day is going to be different to yesterday and different to tomorrow.
That is so true.
Right. And it can feel really overwhelming. And I think that's why we just put it in the too hard basket. We're like, okay, I know I don't feel good. It's just too hard, whatever. And often that can be a bit of a slippery slope because we live often in denial, or we just hope that tomorrow will be better, even though we don't do anything to actually look at the imbalances. So I think the main reasons that we can have all sorts of imbalances, and we can definitely talk about the most common types of imbalances, and I'll give you some tools around that.
Yep.
But I think that the main things that we need to realize is that hormone imbalances can show up as painful periods, as any period problem, really. We can trace back to hormone imbalance. We can look at things like ovulation pain. We can look at known conditions like polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, fertility challenges, right down to things like acne and missing periods. We can look at our hormones for all of these things. So imbalances are wide and varied, and I think that's actually why it's so hard to talk about it, because the symptoms for individual women are different. And so that makes it a challenge. Yeah. And so this is what I want to talk to these. And I love that you've got questions, or people have asked questions, because that's actually how we get into the nitty gritty of what's actually going on. It's all good and well to say, okay, we're women, our hormones can be imbalanced. It can make us feel awful. It doesn't really give us a solution. And the only way we can really get to solutions is if we look at the reason why our hormones are imbalanced.
So what causes hormonal imbalance? What are the causes?
Well, right, which is a great question. I think we can have many reasons why our hormones are imbalanced, but the most common reasons can be hereditary factors. So looking at what our mother's hormone history has been like can give us a great clue into what ours might be like. The next biggest hormone disruptor is stress. And I mean, who's not stressed right now? Yes, absolutely. Oh, wow. And stress inadvertently drives our estrogen crazy. So, as women, we're talking about hormones like estrogen, which we need to help to build our lining, and we need this in preparation for ovulation. Then we have certain hormones that trigger ovulation. We also have testosterone that's really important, that women, we have in very small amounts, but without it, we can't make our other hormones. And then for the second part of our cycle, we have progesterone. And if we can look at where our symptoms lie within a cycle, then we can look at which hormones are actually at play, and then we can actually do something about it. So anyway, I sidetracked. To go back to what we were saying before, stress is a massive disruptor. And that is because the nature of cortisol, which is our stress hormone, or one of our main stress hormones, and some of our other sex hormones, they kind of battle it out against each other. But cortisol's there to save you. It's there to save the day. And what that means is nothing else matters. When cortisol's in town, it's like, I'm here to fix you. I'm here to save you. Everybody else step aside. You just need to do what I've got to tell you to do. Now, which is fine when you're in a car accident. Not that I want anyone to be in a car accident, but when you need that push of cortisol to help you get an adrenaline, to help you get an outcome. But we're not designed to idle along every day with cortisol and adrenaline at a level that we currently experience. We're not designed to be like that. Yeah. So stress, and then we start to look at things like our lifestyle. So obviously eating a certain way is really important to support hormones. Our hormones are made of fat and protein. If we're not eating enough fat and protein, that can be a challenge. We can look at things like chemicals in our body products, in our cleaning products, in our environment.
Oh my God.
So these things can also disrupt our hormones. Heating in plastic containers, eating a lot of canned foods, again, because of the plastics, and just general poor lifestyle as well. I think they're really the main common factors that we see that can really disrupt our hormones. So I like to say we've got external factors. So like we said, chemicals and stress, and things that are outside of us. We've got our stress factors or our emotional health that contributes, and then our internal organs. How are they working? How are our systems working? Because that can be another reason why our hormones can be imbalanced if we're not regulating them and managing them and clearing them properly as well.
Yeah. I think you've already answered this question because I had this question written down, that what hormones do we need to look out for? But I think you've already answered this question. It's cortisol, it's estrogen, progesterone.
Yeah, I think just to basically understand that is really important.
Yeah.
So, and just to break that down, estrogen is what's most, that estrogen is the hormone that definitely the first part of the cycle is really important.
Yeah.
And that builds our lining. Like I said, it gets us ready for ovulation. And then the second part of the cycle is definitely when progesterone is in full swing. So if we are seeing symptoms during the period or in the early stages of our cycle, it more than likely is a problem with estrogen. When we're seeing problems in the second part of the cycle, it is more than likely an issue with progesterone. And so even just that in itself, right, is a game changer, because you can go, oh, hang on a minute, my symptoms are actually the clues here. And we can start to collate the symptoms that we have to then determine what is the actual hormone imbalance that we might be seeing, at least enough for us to become curious, to start to ask more questions and to look for more evidence so that we can actually start to address it.
Yeah.
So the timing of symptoms is very important. And that can be anything from at the start of the period, the end of the period. Ovulation is a very common time in the middle of the cycle to have symptoms. And then in that luteal phase, so from ovulation to when the period's due again, the luteal phase is often where most women see their issues, because there is definitely an issue with progesterone.
Okay, so that's definitely me. I actually go absolutely crazy a week before my period. I swell. I go absolutely nuts over here. Like I can't deal with my life. There was like people on my social media, just like really, really moody in the, just very super, super close. So maybe I should look into this progesterone.
Well, absolutely. But then the question is, okay, so you're seeing symptoms in the later part of your cycle. So we know that progesterone is the issue in the sense that there's probably not enough of it. And that's why you're seeing those symptoms.
Enough of it.
Progesterone is a natural diuretic. So we often see swelling, puffiness, bloating, and that can be a key indication. You just said that to me as well. Okay. Feeling extremely moody, again, can be a result of progesterone tapering off too quickly. Often women will see spotting before the period, again, because of the patterns with progesterone. We can see night sweats before the period. We can see headaches. We can see everything confined to this, like you said, this week beforehand. And our brain goes, oh, okay, well, you're just deficient in progesterone, so we just need to actually supplement your progesterone. However, what we actually need to do is ask why. Why is progesterone misbehaving? And then we can still start to further drill down to work at what's actually going on. So we know there's an issue with progesterone, but now we've got to work out why it's doing that. And it's usually from just a couple of reasons. And it's actually, I determine this by the period tells you so much information about your body. And that can be the biggest clue as to why your progesterone is actually misbehaving. Progesterone will only be low for two reasons. Yep. One is because there's not enough estrogen to actually go on and build enough progesterone, or it can be via a coping mechanism. And this is when we look at high stress, when there's too much estrogen, it negatively impacts progesterone as well. So we actually have to work out what your estrogen's doing to then be able to support healthy progesterone. And that's not as hard as you think. Remember before I said to you, estrogen builds your lining. So I say to patients, more estrogen, more lining, more bleeding. less estrogen, less lining, less bleeding. So is your period heavy or is your period light? And that generally helps us to
Wow.
find the answers of what we need to do then next.
I love you already. I'm not even kidding. I'm not kidding. I am not even kidding. I think I already know my answer. As I'm speaking to you, right? I already know why I'm having all these issues because my life is super stressful, not in a bad way, but just really busy.
Just hectic.
Just hectic, yes. And I think it's because of that
Yes,
my body's
100%.
not producing enough. Oh, wow. Okay, beautiful. Thank
Yes.
you.
So this is really important to even just know this, because once we know it, it's actually not as hard to fix as we think it is. But we'll keep talking and we'll keep learning. But it's really not as
Yeah.
difficult as we think it is. It's just about collating the information.
And you know what? For some reason, I just thought that that's what it is. Like, some women,
Ah,
I'm just one of those women. Because even at work, like, my pain is so bad. Where I remember at some point, like 2 years back, I had called in sick every single month because my first 2 days of my monthly cycle, it was just ridiculously
so bad.
painful. It
Mm-hmm.
was that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And women at work, they'd be like, Maryam, come on, it can't be that bad. And I'm like, you guys don't understand. I can't even talk. I don't even have the energy to
Mm-hmm.
talk. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, yeah, I'm just like, one of those women who get it really bad. That's why I was so passionate, like, to know more about this topic. And look, coming from the culture that I come from, we're not really allowed or supposed to be talking about periods so openly, but I do because it's so painful. And obviously, I have got a big mouth and I don't really care. And I also believe that if I don't talk about this, how are other people going to benefit from it? So now I have got
Well, I
you on my
think I
podcast.
think I think a lot of people have grown up like that, that it's not acceptable to talk about these things. And I think that culturally, obviously, that's different. I think, at least for many women now, there is more conversation available to learn. But
Yes.
but if you don't know and it's not spoken about, then how, you don't have an opportunity to then even do anything about it. And often, I know my mum used to say to me when I was younger, and I've had to stop myself from saying this to my daughter who's 13, but I know my mum used to say, it sucks to be a woman and I'm really sorry. That was her answer to my period pain. I'm sorry. It's not fair. It's just part of it. And it's actually not part of it. I mean, it's
Wow.
common to have period pain, but we're not supposed to have period pain. Pain is a sign of inflammation. And I don't want to be crude, but if a male had pain in his genitals every month, he'd damn well do something about it. But as women, it's just accepted that, oh, well, it just comes with your period. And if you had a pain anywhere else, you would go and check that out. You would go and get your doctor to look at what's actually going on. So period pain is, again, it's just a sign of inflammation. And when there's inflammation, there's pain. And we need to look at why is there inflammation, and do some things to address that so that we can hopefully minimize, and for many women, allow them to live without pain. And it is definitely very possible.
Can it happen for me?
Of course.
Oh my God. I don't know if it
We're
will
gonna we're
ever.
going to get you there. Well, I used to be this
Inshallah.
person. I used to be the girl lying on the bathroom floor every single cycle. I would pass out from pain, and that was in between vomiting and hot sweats, and then I'd be freezing, and then I'd vomit, and then I'd lie down again. And I remember pressing my tiles on the bathroom floor just so that they were cold on my face to stop me from feeling so unwell. I know what this feels like because
Yeah.
this was me. And I didn't fix it because I didn't fix period pain. I didn't like the way I felt in my body. And so I started to adjust my lifestyle, and I started exercising, and I started eating better. And lo and behold, my period pain started to reduce. And so I didn't put two and two together back then. This is when I was early 20s. But now I know how to teach women how to do this. And it's not only, I mean, it's not fair to live with pain. We shouldn't be accepting that as being okay.
That is so true. No, that is very, very true. Okay. Now, so I think we've already touched on this that it does affect us, right? Hormone imbalance affect us. It makes us moody. I have had every single breakup while I was on my period. What do you want to add anything to this? as to
Oh,
how it
there's always so
affects your
much.
life?
I mean, every almost every symptom can be brought back to hormone imbalance.
That is so true. I'm telling you, every
It's
single breakup, it
right.
is
But so,
because, yeah, we
right.
just
But
don't
like you
think
said,
straight.
you do not think straight. But with everything from headaches to acne, skin irritant, like eczema, psoriasis. I mean, whilst it's not the primary cause of something like psoriasis isn't hormones, it's made worse at certain times of your cycle. And that's again because you've got hormones, some are pro-inflammatory, some, there's a pattern to all of these things. Breast tenderness, sensitive nipples for some women, pain, obviously cramping is very common,
That's me.
a very common hormone, as a result of inflammation and hormone changes. And then every single period problem you relate back to, you can relate back to your hormones as well as even things like insomnia. So, I mean, yes, there are
So many things.
so many symptoms
Yeah.
that we can relate back. Even things like facial hair
Yeah.
or balding on the head can
It's
be a
actually
result
coming.
of
It's
excess
coming.
testosterone. Yeah,
It's
there you
actually
go.
coming. It's coming. I have to add something super funny here. And that is that I tell my friends, and if I'm dating someone, right, I always say, okay, so the entire month, there's only 1 week where I'll be mentally sound. Because 1 week prior to my period, I lose my shit. Then obviously I'm on my period, so I'm physically in pain. And
Mm-hmm.
then week after, I'm just recovering. So there is only 1 week in the entire month where I'm just
We have
mentally
to
sound.
sort this out for you. We have to sort this out for
It
you.
is bad. It is
That
bad.
means you
I
only get 12 weeks a year that you feel good.
That's it. It really
That's
is
not
true.
that's not good.
It really is
Yeah,
true.
I need to sort this out.
That's why I'm just like, I need to get this. And people on my social media, they're sick of me talking about periods, especially guys. But you mentioned something really good, that if you mentioned you said it very nicely, but I'm just gonna be like, if men had pain in their penis, or let's say dick. I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but to be honest, I actually don't give a
It's
shit.
true.
It's true. How would you guys feel about it? Would you guys just be like, "Oh, let's not talk about it"? You guys would
No,
want
we'd
to
all know
talk
about
about?
it. We would
Yes.
all know about it. We would all probably having to inspect it to fix it because they wouldn't know what to do. It's true.
It is true. It is
Whereas we're
true.
not sitting there going, hey, I've got uterine. And that's the other thing. I think for men, obviously, their genitals are mostly on the outside. So you can see them if there's a challenge. Ours are tucked away. Ours, you can't even see them. So it's
I
like a
love it.
silent pain.
I love it. I love it so much. But you know what, Nat? I hate it when women don't understand other women. That what pisses me off
Oh,
even more.
well, I think also, though, I mean, what does it, you've seen that meme that goes around, what does it feel like to be God's chosen one and not have period pain? Like, but if you don't have it, it would be very difficult to have sympathy for somebody who does because it's awful. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, I can't sympathize with somebody who has, say, PCOS because I don't have PCOS, but I've definitely at times I have never had diagnosed endometriosis, but I've had very excruciating periods for many years. I don't anymore, but I can sympathize with pain and that level of
Yeah.
pain where you feel like you're going to pass out. I can
Yeah.
sympathize with bad skin. I can sympathize with losing my hair. A lot of these symptoms are, like we said, they're related to our hormones, and depending on what phase we're in of our life, we can definitely experience different things as well. So that's the other layer to add to it. It depends on where you are. Are you in your fertile years? Are you
Yeah.
perimenopausal? Are you menopausal? Like it just keeps on going.
Yeah. There are just like, so many things while we're talking that I want to ask, but I really want to stick, but I'm noting it down. Because,
No
no,
problem.
yeah, if we can't cover it this time, we're going to force you to come. You have no
That's so
choice. You
fine.
have no say. You're going to have to come again. And we're going to talk about it because so many ladies also ask me questions about menopause and everything. But okay, time is of the essence. Now, do you think hormonal imbalance causes weight gain?
Oh yeah, we didn't mention that. Absolutely, it does. Um, there's a couple of reasons why, or a couple of things that to talk about. So estrogen is definitely a metabolic hormone, and when we see excess estrogen, which would probably be the most common hormone imbalance that I see,
Hmm.
we can see weight gain. One of the reasons estrogen dominance is so common is it's a direct result of our lifestyle, and this is the high stress. If stress affects you, if you're genetically predisposed or got the right genes for that to happen, then it's likely that you'll be affected by that. But so estrogen dominance is definitely the imbalance that is a result of high stress, chemical exposure, and not regulating estrogen properly within your body. And so we see weight gain when we see estrogen dominance as one of the key symptoms, alongside of heavy bleeding, ovulation pain, and PMS. They're the most common we see with estrogen dominance. But we can also see weight gain when we have excess testosterone or elevated androgens. For a lot of women with PCOS, they will find it very challenging to manage a healthy weight. So again, we need to use our clues to work out which one are you. And elevated testosterone or elevated androgens also come with other symptoms like acne, especially on the neck, back, and obviously face. These same women often have facial hair. They often have irregular periods, and they often have balding or thinning hair on top of their head. So these are kind of like male patterns in a woman. And so they're probably the two main reasons that we will see weight gain, but there are others. And as we're learning more about the gut and various hormones that we produce in the gut, that can be affected by things like sleep and stress, that can be another reason why we might see weight gain as a result of hormones. So again, it really comes down to profiling those symptoms that we talked about to work out which camp you sit in. And don't let me forget, at the very end, I will share a resource for people to go and work out what their hormone imbalance might be. So I've got you covered, but we'll keep on talking for now.
So I also heard a lot about, like, women were like hypothyroidism. Is
Mm-hmm.
it different to the hormones that we've discussed, or does it actually sit in the same category?
No, it's different again. So your thyroid is a gland that sits just in your neck here, and it is the master controller of your body. So every single cell in your body requires your thyroid to work properly. And unlike other hormones in your body, when your thyroid hormones are being released, they're released in really tiny amounts, but they have a really profound effect. So if these hormones are slightly under or slightly over, the effects can be really obvious for not just women, but men as well. But more commonly, I see women. And so thyroid issues are very often hereditary. But if they're not hereditary, they are very often a result of stress as well. And our thyroid is very sensitive to stress. And when we see these thyroid, it can have a knock-on effect to your menstrual cycle. But when somebody is hyperthyroid or hypothyroid, usually at the time of treating that, it is isolated to the thyroid, not so much about someone's menstrual cycle. Where it often does play in also with hormones is for fertility reasons. Often if there is thyroid challenges, it can be a big factor with fertility, and that's where I would be looking. But when it comes to the everyday cycle, usually if we're looking at thyroid, sometimes it can cause irregular or missing periods, but it's not the first place that you would go looking for that.
Perfect. I don't know why I was getting so many questions. I think it was around weight gain, but that's okay.
Thyroid would be around weight gain, and it is really important that our thyroid hormones are working well for us to maintain a healthy weight. So that's definitely a reason. Most people, the challenge with thyroid is so many people are told that they're fine when they're not fine. And it's why you probably get asked that question, because unfortunately there's a few reasons why women are often told that they are okay, even though their test results say that they're fine, but they don't feel fine. And it's often there's a few reasons why that can be misinterpreted, but it's very, very common. And so sometimes you actually do need the right pair of eyes looking at your test results.
So I actually recently got my test done because I was like, I know 100% there's something wrong with my body, because I know my body. And the doctor is like, it's just perfect. And I was just like, no, there's something wrong with my thyroid or iron. I'm definitely deficient in something, but it was perfect. So what else should I be looking for?
you never want to be normal. You want to be optimal. So I would say that I would love to look at your test results just to see if that's the
Okay.
case. And I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but I
Yep.
think sometimes if you're going to your GP,
Mm.
often they'll look at the report and say, yep, you're within range, you're fine, which is great news. But
Mm.
if you don't feel good, sometimes we actually need to get you to your optimal range to feel better. And so it's just some small adjustments to get that to where it needs to be. And that's more of the world of functional medicine, not sort of your generic in the sort of normal clinical setting that you might get with your GP. That's not kind of, unless they're an integrative doctor, that's not
Yep.
necessarily their arena.
Yep.
So that could be a reason why. The reference ranges have actually been changed a few times over the last 20 years, and that can be confusing to a lot of doctors as well, and it can be confusing to the path lab. So it's not necessarily your GP that's
Yep.
not doing their job properly. They're reading the results,
Yeah.
but there can be some discrepancies around that as well. So there are a few reasons, and you really do want somebody that's seen a lot of them. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, I think someone that's seen a lot will be able to pick it out a mile
Yep.
away.
Yep. Now, let's say if one of my hormones is imbalanced, right? How do we test for it? So to me, like
Yeah.
as we've spoken, right? I think progesterone is just like,
Mhm.
everywhere. How do I test? How do I know?
So first of all, symptoms mean everything to me, and I'll only then I'll start to profile all your symptoms, and then once we do that, then testing can be useful if A, you want confirmation, or B, we're not quite sure.
Mm.
And so you can definitely test your sex hormones and your stress hormone. You can test all of these hormones. I hear a lot of women be told that they cannot test their hormones
Mm.
because their hormones are always changing, so you can't test them. That's actually completely untrue. Yes, they are changing all the time, but that's why we need to test them on certain days of your cycle. So the days that are the best for us to know are cycle day 2 so that's easy because you've just had your period and you're not guessing.
Mm.
And the other day, which is the best day to test, is cycle day 21 or 7 days after your ovulation. So if you know you ovulate late, then you would wait to ovulate and test 7 days after. But if you have a regular 28-day cycle, you can more than likely safely test on cycle day 21, which should be roughly 7 days after ovulation. And we know where your hormones should be roughly at that time so that we can test the ranges, and we can look at estrogen, we can look at progesterone, we can look at testosterone. We should also test FSH, or follicle stimulating hormone, and luteinizing hormone. Those two together can tell us so much information about things like PCOS or other issues with the pituitary, or how far along the road you are in terms of fertility and perimenopause and menopause. There's lots that we can find out from those tests. So we should do those as well. And then I say to patients, well, whilst you're there, you probably should look at things like your vitamin D and your iron and your cortisol, just so that you can check those boxes off as well. Because I don't know about you, but I don't really love having blood tests. So if I can minimize not having to have them very often, then that makes
Yeah.
me feel better.
Yeah.
And that's a generic blood test, but also the most accurate way to test hormones is actually with something called a Dutch test or a dry urine test, which we get you to test throughout the day, and it's very, very accurate. And
Really?
more than a blood test, a blood test gives you a snapshot of a moment in time, whereas a dry urine test or a Dutch test can show you what your hormones have done over the day, which is very important, but also it shows you how your body's kind of like using your hormones. So, it's all good and well to have all the estrogen on the planet, but if you're not utilizing it properly, then it's actually useless to your body. So we've got to make sure that your body's using it correctly, to then be able to know. So that's one example of why a Dutch test can be really useful.
I think I have so many questions, but as we've spoken, I think you've already answered them. It is treatable, right? These hormonal
100%.
imbalances, we can treat them.
100%, so long as we can work out why it's happening. And that's
Yes.
the challenge. And so I can sit here and I can go, okay, you've got ovulation pain, and we've worked out that you're estrogen dominant. So we start to regulate your estrogen. And so, we get your gut regulating your estrogen. We make sure that your bowels are moving regularly. So we're clearing out excess estrogen. We're making sure your liver's detoxifying your hormones again, so that can be cleared out. And that's all fine. And I can get you feeling better in a couple of months. But then if you are constantly living in a highly stressed environment, let's say,
Yes.
and that's the feeder, then you're going to find yourself back there again.
Oh,
And so the true treatment is actually not just addressing the physical, but also looking, okay, what else is going on here that's tipping you back into this state constantly? Because if we don't address these other factors that sit outside of you, then you're only going to end up back there again. And so, especially for something like stress, which is a huge driver for hormone imbalances, it's not, I'm not sitting here and I'm not going to be like, you just need to not stress. You're going to want to
how's that
punch me in the
possible? Yeah,
face.
I know.
Right.
How's that possible?
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we have to be able to do is recognize when we're stressed. And that is the
All the
best thing
time.
that you can do. Right. But in the moment, in the actual moment, to be able to say, huh, you know what? Actually, I'm back here again. And you
Yeah.
know what? You might end up there 100 times in a day.
Yeah.
But just by recognizing it, it means you can actually go, I'm not doing that right now. I know I'm
So
stressed, or
true.
I know that I
So
want to
true.
stress to get an outcome, but I'm just going to tell myself right now, just put the handbrake on that and just get the job
Chill.
done. Stop worrying about it. You know
So
what I
true.
mean?
Yeah, I've actually
It's
recently started doing this. Sorry to cut you off. Yep.
That's okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, go.
No, I'm just saying because I feel like my entire life is so stressful. Like, again, not in a bad way. Alhamdulillah, I'm so blessed, right? But it's just like, one thing after the other. I'm dealing with so many people, then it's work, then it's like, so many other
I
things.
know.
And I feel like I'm just like only one person and I only have 24 hours, but I just don't have enough of me or enough time, enough hours in
Right.
a
But
day.
there's always more. This is the thing. There's
Yeah.
always going to be more. There's always going to be more on the to-do list. There's always going to be more people that you need to service. There's always going to be more. And nobody's going to come along and say, "Hey, I've decided to rescue you today. Let me just come and get you, take you out of this, and I'm going to make it all better." No one is going to do that for us. We actually have to have enough awareness ourselves to be able to
Yeah.
do this. And the other challenge that we've got is we live at a time where stress is glorified, and we've adopted the idea that if we're not stressed out to the point of losing our minds, we're not going to get a job done. Where we live in a situation that almost makes us feel better when we are stressed, which is ridiculous. So we have to choose. And I say to people, I just want you to create pockets within your day where you've pulled yourself out of fight and flight, because that fight and flight means that nothing else is working in your body. When you're in fight and flight, uh, and your systems are pumping in that way, your body is directing all of its energy away from your organs. It's directing blood to your muscles so that you can save yourself from a situation, probably to your brain as well. But it's certainly not worried about digesting your lunch or making quality hormones.
Oh,
It's not
yes.
doing that under those circumstances. So how often can we create pockets where we take you out of fight or flight so that we can get you to reduce that idling threshold, that stress threshold, and try and create a better normal that's lower? And the only way we can do that is to be conscious.
How do you deal with it? So I'm pretty sure, like, you're pretty busy. You're a mom, you've got a family, then you've got all these other things going on. How do you deal with it? How do you tell yourself it's easy, right? But how do you actually do this?
Because I mean, many reasons or many crossroads that I came to that made me realize I had to actually do better. Whether it was for the example of my children, whether it was for the example of my team. I run 4 businesses. I can't be like that because I'd be good to nobody. And also my health definitely suffers when I'm in that kind of state. So I worked out that I could work smarter and not harder and get better outcomes and feel better,
Yeah.
and by actually doing less and achieving more. And I really have learnt to listen to what my body is telling me, and also I trust and know that I'm always being guided. So I don't find that I make bad decisions generally anymore. Actually, I've made enough bad decisions to know not to make bad decisions.
Yeah.
But I trust the process, and I really,
Yeah.
really do think my body knows what it needs. And so it's over time, I think, getting to that place where you have a lot of trust and faith in your body to show you what needs to be done. I prioritize nutrition. I
Yep.
prioritize movement. It's been very hard, obviously, in lockdown to
Yes.
be able to, even move my body in the way that I'd like to. But I also, I know I need to do these things to be able to show up and be my best. So it's a choice at the end of the day. It's what we choose.
That is so true. It's at the end of the day, it's really whether you want to look after yourself or not. How much more time do we
Right.
have? How much more time
Whatever
to
you
talk?
need.
Okay,
Whatever
that's
you
good.
need.
Look, my audience is used to me saying all of this, so don't stress about it. Yeah,
I am not
they know.
stressed. I promise you, this is not stressful.
That is
When
so
I'm here to teach you how to not be stressed about this kind of stuff.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And they're just like, so many questions. So I just want to be mindful of your time as well. So
Thank
that's
you.
why I
I
just
appreciate
had to
that, but
ask.
I'm not going anywhere. In
Good.
fact, I'm here for another 10 days. So
I'm loving it. And you know what? I'm really not liking my intro. I don't like the way I introduced you.
we
So I
can
think
do
I'm
it
gonna,
again.
yeah, I think I have to do it again. I'm just like, I have to do it again. It's just giving me anxiety. Like I'm thinking about it. As I'm
That's
talking
okay.
to you, I'm thinking about it. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna have to do we're gonna have to do a retake. All
No
right.
problem.
So, this is a good question. In your experience, right, as you deal with patients, what is one most common imbalance? Is it, I think
So
you have sort of touched on it. It
I
is
did. I would say so.
estrogen.
I did say that estrogen dominance would probably be the most common hormone imbalance that I see. There are definitely practitioners out there that would have other common things that they see, but I definitely do think that excess estrogen is definitely hands down the most common, and I would say 95% of women I see have that as an imbalance. The second one behind that would probably be elevated androgens, so elevated testosterone, especially in the instance of something like PCOS, or at least insulin resistance. So a lot of women are insulin resistant, which means that their cells don't actually regulate insulin properly, which becomes an issue in creating more testosterone in their body than they need. But it doesn't matter, like whatever it is, they are treatable by basically hacking the way that your body is behaving. And that's what it comes down to. How do I hack your insulin, and so that it doesn't do that, so that I can make your cells actually behave and perform properly? Or how, for excess estrogen, how do I reduce estrogen in your body and get your body to regulate your estrogen better, so you don't have these nasty symptoms like heavy periods and ovulation pain? Um, and so it's not as hard as we think it is. It's just a matter of using those clues to then do what's the next one thing. So I'm always teaching patients, what's the next one thing I can get you to do? You don't have to do everything. You just have to do one thing to actually break the cycle, whether it's, like I said, get conscious about stress, or get your cells to regulate your insulin better. There's always hacks for these things, and that's what I'm here to teach people.
Okay, I have a question. This is just my question. Like as we were talking, it just came to my mind. Ovulation pain, right? I think you feel it on one side of your lower abdomen, isn't it?
Well, some women will feel a little twinge on one or the other, because you're
Yeah.
only going to ovulate generally from one side.
Yeah.
The type of ovulation pain I'm talking about that goes with excess estrogen, especially, is something that women feel sometimes worse than period pain in the middle of the cycle, and they'll get it for more than an hour. So some women will get it for
Yes.
half a day, some women will get it
Yes.
for 2 hours, 2 days. But it's usually just after ovulation. And I do find that it's definitely my key symptom for excess estrogen. So if I know that you come
That's
to me
me.
and you say, I've got ovulation pain,
That's me.
and this is what I'm thinking for you. I think that there's definitely you are this common hormone imbalance type,
That's
where
me.
your estrogen is elevated, and as a
Hallelujah.
result, your
I know.
progesterone is impacted, and so we've got to regulate your estrogen so that your progesterone will naturally
Yeah,
rise.
that's me, 100%. I've diagnosed myself during our conversation, during this
Love
podcast.
that.
We know what's wrong with
Love
me.
that.
Because to
I
be
love
honest,
that.
I can feel the pain. It's only on one side. It's just in the
Hmm.
lower abdomen. That's it. I know what my issue is. Okay, I think
So
we've
then,
already. Yep, sorry, you go.
yes. So no. So and we've also identified that stress is a big factor for you. So you've already got somewhere to
Yes.
start.
Look, can I be honest with you? I'm working on it. I'm working
Good.
working on it. I think it's just the whole COVID situation. Before COVID, I, the way I would um, deal with my stress is through weightlifting and gym,
Mm-hmm.
because I've
Mm-hmm.
power lifted for so many years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the most important thing in my life has been taken away. I don't have my family
Mm.
here. My family is overseas. So,
Right.
and I can't see my family.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so many things have happened. And so I can't see my family, number one. And then, secondly, the most important thing in my life that actually shows me, like, how to deal with my life in general and how to deal with stress is powerlifting. And that's been
And
taken
you're
away.
not lifting at all at the moment.
No, like I've got little tiny weights at
It's not
home,
the
and
same.
it's not the same because, like, I'm just so used to the whole powerlifting lifestyle where you go there and you're swearing and you're like, getting in the zone
Yes.
and you're throwing
Yes.
weights and
Yes. I'm not a
it,
power lifter, but I'm a CrossFitter, so I
yeah. You
understand.
understand
Uh,
CrossFit
I
powerlift again,
understand.
it's the same,
Yes.
right? So
A little bit crossover. Yes.
yeah, so I just miss
Yeah.
that
That.
so bad, yeah.
Mm,
And I
I
just,
understand.
yeah. And I'm just now getting to a point where I'm just like,
You
that's
might
the
just have to
only
start
way.
lifting and throwing stuff down just to feel better.
I am
Just
definitely
start to get
breaking
stuff and just be like,
things. Yes,
it's not even the lift, it's the throwing it down.
that's
It's so
the
therapeutic.
it is. So I am an aggressive person, right? Not to make it sound bad, but I am an aggressive person. Like where I come from, like I'm Pakistani Persian, if that makes sense. So we are aggressive people
Beautiful.
and a lot
Yes.
of energy. So that's the only way for me to deal with my stress, and that's been taken away. Daniel Andrews, please open the gym soon. Please, please, please.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly.
Um,
Well, yeah, I think you might just have to start throwing things.
I think so too.
That will
I think
help
so
you.
too. At people. Okay. No, I'm just gonna. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Uh, what is the biggest hidden hormone disruptor? I think you've already answered that. Stress. Yes.
Well, we said stress,
Yeah.
and that is definitely a big one. Um, but I think probably the quality of our foods and what we're consuming can definitely be also another big factor as well. I think there are so many known hormone disrupting chemicals in the average woman. By the time she's left in the morning, has already exposed herself to around 80 known hormone disrupting chemicals, it by way of, you know, their body products, their hair products, their deodorant, their makeup. Um, so I would say that's probably the second one. Then what I do want to say is I don't want you to, after you or as you're listening to this, I don't want you to throw out your whole beauty cabinet. I don't want you to throw out your whole cleaning cabinet. That's expensive and it's stressful. And we're not going to do that. We're not doing that anymore. But each time it is time to replace a product that runs out, I would encourage you to look for a product that actually is friendly for your hormones. And the nice thing is that there are lots of them out there, and we don't have to sacrifice, a poor performing product anymore to say make up for our mascara or our shampoo or our benchtop cleaner. There are awesome products that are the same price as what you're probably already paying, that don't have that impact. So I definitely would encourage you to start to think about that, because I mean, 80 chemicals before 8 a.m. to me sounds like a disaster.
Allahu Akbar is what I'm gonna say. Wow. Um,
Yeah.
can you touch more on diet? It's just because brown people, and especially brown women, brown mummies. they always have excuses. And again, don't come at me. Don't come at me. I'm not going to accept this. But I think it would be good for them because I always tell them the importance of a good diet.
Yeah.
What would you suggest a good diet is? What, according to you, is a good diet? Because it's not just them, they're looking after their family and kids as well. And they need to start these healthy habits and introduce these healthy habits from a very early age.
I think it's
Sugar, yep,
really important to, you're right. But I also think that as parents and as mums, we have an opportunity to set an example. And what our children see us doing, whether we are aware or not, is what our children know to be normal. So if you, for example, have a horrible period, I know this is not what you asked me, but just hear me out,
yep.
and every month rolls around and you are complaining and it's back again and you're in pain and mummy's in pain and I hate this time of the month and I'm so sorry, sweetie, and it's just awful, she's going to grow up to hate periods before she's even got one because she's seen that example in you. Now, I would encourage you that if anything, as we said before, isn't right, then I would hope that you can find solutions for that so that that's not her experience. But the same with food. I have a lot of parents say to me, oh my goodness, I just can't get my child to eat X, Y, or Z. And it's often because the parents are not eating X, Y, or Z and not being a great example, and children will just follow. So I think whether they're eating it or not, it's up to us to set a really great example so that they've got this foundation that they base home on. And whilst we might stray away from home, we always come back to home in times of need, especially when we're not feeling great. So I very much encourage patients, like I said before, fat and protein are so important for our hormones, and often what we might you know, often we won't place enough emphasis on them. We've been told that fat makes us fat. That's the biggest myth of all time. Fat quality and good fats helps us feel satiated and full. When we're hungry, if we have the right fats, it'll help us to feel satisfied. And it is very, very important for weight management as well, to make sure that we're having enough good fats. So these are things like, avocados, nuts, seeds, good oils, oily fish, eggs. These sorts of foods are what I call therapeutic fats and tick so many boxes. And then, of course, plants needs to make up the other part of your plate. So, whatever that looks like for you, I'm not going to, if you don't like broccoli, I'm not going to sit here and say you must eat broccoli.
Yeah.
But you need to be aware. So I always say about a fist size amount for protein. The latest research when it comes to fats, especially when it comes to hormones and fertility, is quite high amounts of fats. We're looking at something around 35% plus, which is a lot as far as I'm concerned. And then the rest of your plate made up with your veggies and or salad, whatever plants that you like. And that's a really good guide. The other thing I love patients to do is try and commit to their last meal of the day being dinner and not eating after dinner. It's really important when you go to bed that your digestive system has an opportunity to digest and then do all the other things that it's responsible for outside of digestion, like making hormones or regulating hormones or eliminating certain things that don't need to be there. So having at least 12 hours overnight, I think, is very important to give your gut a rest and allow it to do all those other wonderful things that it's designed for, especially at the moment, like building an immune system or supporting an immune system. That all stems from our gut. So if we can have the time to allow it to repair as well, that can make a vast difference to our overall health.
You sound like Dave Asprey. Asprey?
Do I?
You do.
So
I love
I
that
love
man.
Dave.
I love
I
that
love
man.
Dave. I have a very large network in the US, and
Yeah.
I've spent the last up until COVID 3 years traveling back and forth. I spent my
Wow.
time split between the two. But the very first time I went to one of the larger sort of collaborative group that I'm part of, I was just this little Aussie that's rocked in, sat down, got my book in front of me, and next to me I've got Dave Asprey and Mark Hyman, and I had no idea who they were. And I'm
Really?
like,
Wow.
well, this is like 6 years ago,
Okay.
7 years ago.
Yes.
And so I'm sit down and I'm like, so I really want to get my book published in America. And here's Dave giving me all this advice. And I had absolutely no idea who I was talking to.
That's
Obviously now
funny.
I know yeah, very, very different. But I'm glad I sound like Dave Asper. That's
You
a
do.
compliment.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with that man. I follow him, listen to his podcasts, everything. Just I have his books as well. So
Amazing.
he's very inspirational.
He certainly is.
Yeah, 100%. And you are as well.
Oh, that's
Okay.
kind. Thank you.
Now, uh does birth control, so these are the questions I think from the audience. Does birth control fix your problem?
Oh, I love this. So I'm really glad that you asked this question, because whenever we see, often for hormone imbalances, birth control is what we're prescribed. And it's a one size fits all. So it doesn't matter if you're estrogen dominant, testosterone dominant, estrogen deficient, cortisol, elevated cortisol, like all of these hormone imbalances that we've been talking about. We tend to use birth control or a Mirena to treat our problems. Now, I'm not here to say you shouldn't use birth control. I'm not here to say you shouldn't have a Mirena. But if we're using it to fix a hormone imbalance, unfortunately, it's something that it's not designed to do. So it's one thing to use birth control for birth control. It's another thing to use it to try and treat your body to fix a problem, because it doesn't actually do that. What birth control does is it flatlines your hormones. So it stops the ebbs and flows that we've been talking about. And that can be beneficial to offer you some short-term relief. But unfortunately, over the long term, if the hormone imbalance isn't fixed, it's always going to be there. So what it means is, for a lot of women, they might have used the pill to treat, say, their acne, and they decide 10 years later to come off the pill because of whatever reason, and their acne comes back with vengeance for many reasons, but mostly because it hasn't been fixed in the first place. The other challenge with birth control is a lot of women or young girls are prescribed birth control, especially around the age of around 16, when their hormones are really fluctuating. And our hormones we don't sexually mature. When it comes to our hormones, they don't develop and mature until around 21.
Okay.
So if you are 16 and you have, say, acne, or you have horrible periods and your doctor has prescribed the pill to treat it, unfortunately, it doesn't treat the problem. It's going the underlying imbalance, or your symptoms are trying to tell you what the imbalance is in the
Yeah.
first place. But unfortunately, because of the nature of what the pill does, it actually stops your hormones from continuing to develop from that point in time. So if you are 16 and you start taking the pill and you're 26 when you stop taking it, unfortunately, you kind of got to go back to the start again and allow that maturation to continue to develop. And it's why a lot of women have quite obvious problems when they transition off birth control. So I'm not saying don't use it, but I want women to have these facts, because I'm very sure a lot of 26, 30, however many year olds don't realize that. And the research does indicate that the longer you refrain from using birth control as your hormones are developing, the less problematic it is on your hormones long term. So what I'm trying to say is, sort of, if you're 21 and above and you start to use birth control, it seems to be less problematic in what it does to our hormones than if we're using it before, because our hormones aren't sexually developed quite yet. And I think that's important for women to know. I don't think that's necessarily explained or described to us at the point of us taking birth control. Look, if you have excruciating period pain, then by all means, I'm sure you just want it to stop, and that's fair enough. But what I do want you to realize is that we still have to treat the underlying issue, so that you don't have to have that and experience that. And also there's a knock-on effect, and it probably means that down the line somewhere, that hormone imbalance has to be sorted out, whether it's for fertility or menopause or moods or whatever it might be, because these symptoms tend to creep back in over time anyway.
So birth control, what it does is it just stops it, whatever you're feeling for that time, but it doesn't really fix the issue.
It flatlines your hormones, basically. You
Yep.
don't get the ebbs and flows. You don't get the estrogen, and then you don't get the peak, and then you don't get the progesterone. And
Yep.
whilst that can seem appealing, the challenge is that it doesn't actually fix that imbalance. Also,
Yes.
unfortunately, the pill will deplete your body of essential vitamins and minerals quite substantially, and it really
Yeah.
does mess up our gut health as well. So
Yeah.
this is often why women, when they transition off birth control, are far worse than where they started, not only because the imbalance hasn't been fixed,
Yeah.
but they're very, very depleted as a
Yeah.
result. And for some women, that can mean that they don't get a period, or that other challenges that arise. So
Yep.
the nice thing is that the initial imbalance is always what we're going to treat anyway. If that has been you, or you know that I'm speaking to you right now and you're like, this is me, I've been prescribed the pill,
I have been, yes.
then we can actually definitely do something about that.
The reason why I was prescribed birth control was because my period is really painful.
Mm-hmm.
So just to stop the period, so I
Mm-hmm.
can just like live
Which is
my
so
life.
common. So you and fair enough too. I don't think it's fair to live with
Yeah.
period pain, or just generally being in
Yeah.
pain. But there's reasons that that's happening, and so
Yes.
addressing those reasons is really, really important long term, especially if eventually you do want children and you want to actually feel good, and you don't want to have 1 week every month that you feel okay for, and then the rest of it's a disaster. That's a result of the hormone imbalances. So you've got all these little symptoms that your body's screaming out to you saying, hey,
Yep.
I'm trying to show you what's actually going on here. Now it's your turn to listen, and let's do something about it,
Yep.
please.
And you know what's really funny? It's not just a disaster for me, it's a disaster for everybody else as well, because I'm not someone
Well,
who's going to keep it.
I often help women and fix their hormones, and their partners will be like, thank you so much.
That is so true. Um, okay, so how can we fix our menstrual cycle for performance? So,
Ah,
it
yeah, I
really
love this.
affects how you perform, not just mentally, but also
Yes,
physically. Can we? Is there
yes.
a way?
Yes, it's called awareness to start with. I think we, again, I'm going to steal this quote of Dr. Stephanie Estima, who's a good friend of mine. But she came on my podcast and she said, women are not tiny men, but we often live day to day as if we are. Men are the same every single day when it comes to, well, within reason, but they literally have a 24-hour circadian rhythm that they follow. And it's literally eat, sleep, play, repeat. Maybe not in that order. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah.
Sleep, eat, play, work, repeat, whatever that is.
Yeah.
But for us as women, we also have a menstrual cycle that goes within our own cycles. So whilst yes, we run on a 24-hour clock, as we said before, we're different every single day of the cycle. Every single day of the cycle, we are different. And so what that means is that our needs change every single day of the cycle, and we need to know what they are to be able to utilize that to perform. I like to liken our cycle to the seasons. So if we look at the period being if we look at the period when we're coming into period, it's very much like winter. We need to go inward. All the leaves have fallen off the trees. Everything's quite barren. It's a very much a time where we hibernate, right? We need more nurturing in winter. We also need more nurturing when we have our period. Now,
True.
then we come out from the other side of winter and we come into spring. What do we want to do with spring? It's a time of new growth. We feel very alive. It's when we're creative. This is likened to the pre-ovulation and ovulation phase of our cycle. And then we come into summer. Once we're into ovulation, we're in summer. We're social. We want to meet the world. We execute tasks. We get it done. We get a surge of testosterone. We should feel like we are going out and actually meeting the world, basically. And then the other side of that, we come into autumn. So we come into that, we get ready. We're not quite back in winter yet. We're getting ready to go inward, but we're not actually inward. We still feel good. The days are still long, but we are preparing for that next hibernation phase. And if we can look at our cycle using the seasons, we can kind of pinpoint how we want to be showing up each and every day to perform. It's okay to not be on every day. It's okay to need a little bit more sleep and a little bit more nutrition and a little bit more nurturing in that phase before our period. And in fact, for the last few months, I've actually literally been giving myself permission just before my period for maybe the 2 days to actually do less. Like I'm going to commit to saying no to a few things. I'm going to commit to resting a little bit more. And I can tell you my periods have been so much better, because I've actually honored my body and given it the space and the time to do what it needs to do to prepare to have a period. But the same as ovulation, if I know that that's when it's time to execute things, I can perform and I can try and be at my best if I really need to do that. Let's say, however, that for argument's sake, that you have a big presentation 3 days before the period and you know it's not a very good time for you. You know it's a crappy time for you. Then I would say we need to scaffold and we need to support your body in and around that. And what that means is it literally means, okay, I know I've got to perform on this day. I know I need to bring it. I am not doing anything else except for focusing on that one task that I need to deliver, because I know my body at this point in time, it can't do all the things because I'm not in summer and I'm not in spring. I'm actually about to get into winter, which is a hibernating time. So if I just do the bare minimum, but focus all my energy on that one thing that I need to execute, I promise you, you'll actually deliver. And we can do this at any time of the cycle. We just need to work out where we are so that we can actually utilize that to perform to our best.
I actually am very good at tracking my cycle because I want to know,
Yes,
right? Like if because
good.
when I was younger, I didn't know when my cycle. I never used to track my cycle, and I'd have all these crazy feelings, and I wouldn't know
Yes.
why. The reason I track my cycle is because I want to know why I'm feeling this way, and then I tell myself,
Right.
"Oh, just calm down.
Right.
It's
But now
just
what I want you to
hormones."
do is honor that even more. Like you
Hmm.
know where you're at.
Hmm.
But what about you if you, especially in the phases where you don't feel great,
Yep.
perhaps you're trying to act as if you're in your peak part of your cycle when you're actually in your hibernating part of your
Hmm.
cycle.
Hmm. Hmm.
Perhaps if we utilize that, and everybody's different, speaking of lifting, for
Hmm.
example,
Hmm.
often when we are bleeding or we
Hmm.
have our period,
Hmm.
we don't, that's something that we just can't entertain, right? It's like
Yep.
not a good time for that.
Yep.
Whereas other people, that's a really great time. It just
Yep.
depends on you knowing this. I know that I've, if you can check in with yourself, obviously, as well, but I've observed this in myself. I know I'm actually the most useless in the pre-period phase. But once I get
That's
my
me.
period, I'm good to go.
That's
I'm
me.
like, let's go. Yeah. And
That's
so
me.
I know this about me. And so it means that actually I'm not the person that needs to sit at home on the second day of my cycle. And that's the day I'm ready to go. But I know this about myself. And so I can use that information to perform.
But you know what? My period only lasts for 3 days.
That's okay.
Yep. So 1 week before my period, I'm completely fucked. Like mentally. It's mentally, and
Yes.
I'm just bloated, right? When my
Right. We're going to
period,
sort that out.
yeah. Now my period starts first 2 days, I'm in terrible pain. But I still like
Right.
I'm a tough bitch. So
Yes.
I'll do whatever needs to be done. But I need to
Yes.
understand that it's hibernation. I need to
Yes. You
understand. I
do.
need
I
to
just
listen.
challenge you to do it for 1 month. I just want you to see, I want to see that if you utilize that awareness and
Yes.
you actually consciously went, okay, before my period, I need to be in bed an hour earlier. I need to make sure I'm eating enough of the right type of foods. And I just need to say no to something, whatever that is.
Yes,
And
many
you just
things. Yep.
tried that on. And I would love to know what your
Yep.
period was like that next cycle.
Yep. No, I
Makes a
definitely.
world of
Yep.
difference.
I'm telling you, I need
And
you
you
in
know
my
what we're
life.
doing is this stress awareness that I'm talking about. This is
Yep.
just another way of practicing that.
Yep. Because I feel like I should be able to perform exactly the same as I perform in the other 3 weeks, right? But looks like it's not
No,
fair. Looks
no,
like it's
I
not
know.
fair.
Well, actually, you can use it to, like I said, you can use it to your advantage if you know where you are on any given day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I need to
You can
rest the
be,
first 2 days, especially.
yes, and it's okay
Yeah.
to do that. The wheels aren't going to fall off.
Nah.
In fact, you'll probably perform even better throughout the rest of the
That
cycle.
is so true.
Totally.
That is
I
so
know.
true. Do you think
Yeah.
3 day period is normal?
Here's what we don't get told is that our periods obviously change all the time. So we're in our 20s, we definitely have longer and longer periods. From probably when we get our period through to our mid 20s, we definitely sort of 5 to 7 days is the average bleed. When we move into our 30s, they start to get a bit shorter and a little bit lighter as well. And then beyond 35 and 40, we tend to see them become a little bit more sporadic and heavier, to the point where then they start to taper off. So it's important to know they change, is the
But
moral of that story.
like even when I was younger, the first time I got my period, first 2 days, crazy, like really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
stops. See you later, gone. And then
Mm-hmm.
after 2 days, it will just come back for one day, and that's it. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. Do you think that's
That's
normal?
that's a stress response. That's
Hmm.
adrenals a little bit overdriving. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my cycle. 3 day cycle. So a week
Mm-hmm.
before I'm crazy, it comes and shows itself for 2 days, disappears, and then out of like,
Yeah, we got to regulate your estrogen. So you know how I promised you, I said, don't let me forget. If you're sitting here going, I don't know what my imbalance is, or I don't even
yes.
know where to start, I do have, and I'm sure you can put in the show notes. I have a hormone worksheet that helps to profile your symptoms and work out what your imbalance is. So I will give you. Though I'll give you that link, but it's also in my bio on Instagram as well. So you can
I'll
literally click on
actually
it. It'll take you
I'll
two
link your
minutes.
I'll link your bio here
There
as
you
well
go.
for people to
Easy.
see.
But you can literally go and fill it out and it'll give you an answer in a couple of minutes. Now it won't give you the 100% accuracy pinpointed to the
Yes.
moment, but
Yes.
it'll help you to become more aware and look
Yep.
and become more curious as to what to
Yep.
do next. But it should definitely help you
Show you which
profile.
way, yeah,
Yes.
which way to go.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have more energy or are you tired?
I'm good. I'm
Okay.
here for you.
I just wanted to make sure.
No, all good.
Okay, think we no. I'm not gonna ask that question. Okay. Okay, okay. Hmm. I have a question. This is irrelevant. Maybe this is linked. And I actually noted it down when you were talking about, like, all these other things, artificial things, and things that are actually not good for you, like plastics, this, that, makeup.
Mm-hmm.
What about Botox?
Oh, I get asked this question all the time. And I'm like, why? Is it because I need it or is it because
No,
I've
I
had.
get it.
No,
I get
I'm
it done.
joking.
Yeah, I get it
No, no.
done.
I get asked, whenever I put a question box up on Instagram, I get asked this question every single time. And here's what I'll say. Botox has been around for a very, very long time.
Yes.
Um, in terms of hormone disrupting, there's
Hmm.
not a lot of evidence to say that it is a hormone disruptor. Having said that, I think it's well recognized that Botox is a toxin.
Hmm.
And so it's just,
I love it.
um, there's not a good answer.
I still love it. I love fillers and I love Botox. Honestly, like,
Right. Well, I
yeah.
think something like Botox has been around for a really long time. I'm not a professional in this area, and people always say, "Oh, come on, Nat, just give me an answer." I'm like, "Well, I'm not actually an injectable doctor." I think, look, a lot of people would argue and say it is a toxin, and I'm like, yes, it is, but it is one of those ones that has been around for a really long time. And I think on the scale of things, it's anyone that I know that injects it, that's a doctor, would say it's very, very safe. Um, but I I kind of sit in the middle with this one.
Yep. Okay. I get it. I get it. That's okay. I just got so curious because you were talking about all these
Mm,
other things and I was like, maybe I should ask. Okay,
yeah.
moving
Well,
on.
I'm glad you did, and I didn't give you a very good answer.
So, and I'm also glad that I'm not the only person who had
I
this
know,
question.
constantly, all the time, all the time.
So I'm just happy
Yeah,
that it's not just me. Okay.
yeah.
Does hormonal imbalance, I think you've already answered that it can result in hair loss, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to complete the question because there are three parts.
Sure,
And if you forget, like, the track, that's okay. Just let
that's
me know and I'll
okay.
repeat. So, does it, and this was such a common question, like so many people, 20 or 30 questions were just related to this. So, Does it lead to hair loss? How do we manage it? And whatever loss that has already occurred, the damage that's already done, can we retract that? Can that be
Great
reversed?
question. So one of the most common reasons we see hair loss for women is PCOS, and that's usually the top of the head. But you can see alopecia, and it often follows various lines in the hair. I've treated a lot of hair loss. It is very pesky and annoying to treat, I feel, for the patients that are experiencing it. When it's PCOS related, I find I get great success with treating that because we get great success with treating PCOS. So that one is definitely easier than androgenic alopecia or a diagnosis where there actually is balding. So they're the two main reasons that we see hair loss. And depending on the type of hair loss, that kind of determines the success with it growing back. So I find with, like I said, PCOS, that more male pattern is a bit easier because we definitely have great results with addressing PCOS. Where the hair follicle has actually been damaged or it dies, that obviously, I never say never. I think under the right circumstances, you can fix anything, to be honest.
Yep.
But you've really got to work out what's actually going on and why. And the hair loss is difficult because the medications that are available are fabulous until you can't take them. And then once you can't take them, then you lose all of your hair. So I am always encouraging patients to see if we can try and avoid or use that as a last resort to actually get their hair to their hormones to actually be supported properly to actually fix it long term. So that becomes definitely a case by case situation.
Absolutely. And that's with anything, case by case. Every person is different. Now, this is
It's
a
true.
stupid question.
No, there's never a stupid question.
It's coming from me.
Oh, then it
P-
must be.
I love it. PCOS. What is it? What is
Oh,
PCOS?
sorry. Yeah. Well,
Oh
you'll
my
know if you
God.
have it.
Yeah, what is it?
So polycystic ovarian syndrome is a condition that we estimate roughly 10 to 20% of women have. It's a condition where it's a syndrome. So it's actually very hard to diagnose. The only way you can diagnose PCOS is via blood test, ultrasound, and profiling symptoms. But what we typically, PCOS is absent or very irregular menstrual cycles or periods, acne, facial hair, hair loss on the head, and weight gain. And often depression or anxiety go with that as well. That's the most common symptoms that present for PCOS. But we are seeing now the research that's coming out and the way that we're looking at PCOS is we actually start to profile symptoms to allow us to work out how to address the type of PCOS that you have. So we're now categorizing PCOS into types. So PCOS is the umbrella, and there's about 6 types that sit underneath that.
Okay.
And the types allow us to treat it accurately. So you might not have weight gain. You might actually just have missing periods and you might be thin, but you on an ultrasound show and present with polycystic ovaries. So the way we would treat you is going to vary from the person that has true PCOS with the weight gain and the hair loss and the facial hair and the acne and the full gamut. And so and this is just what I've been talking about from the beginning. Symptoms are very important in terms of guiding us as to how we treat something successfully to dial in that individualized approach.
And I think this is something, and endometriosis is something that actually needs an episode on its own. You can't just cover the whole thing.
It is a huge topic. All of these topics are huge. We're just scratching the surface here. And I think if any of these things ring true to you, I'm just hoping that I spark enough curiosity for you to start to ask yourself, well, why is this happening for me? So that you can then get yourself some answers.
And fix it. And we need to
Correct.
fix it as well, because I can't keep on going like this.
No, we're going to fix you. Don't worry.
Yeah. There is a lot that needs fixing. Okay. This is actually a good question, and I have no idea what that is. Let's see. What is seed cycling. Do you know
Oh,
anything about
someone asked
seeds?
about seed cycling. I
Yeah.
love that.
What is seed
Seed
cycling?
cycling, yeah, seed cycling is using nuts and seeds at various parts of the menstrual cycle to support your hormones. So, I'm going to get this wrong, and I shouldn't because I actually have a seed cycling product.
Okay.
But let me think about this for a second. Sesame seeds and sunflower seeds you use at the beginning of the cycle for the first 14 days, and pumpkin seeds and flax seeds. I think I've got that right. I might have to double check that for the
That's
second
okay.
part of the cycle. So, especially the pumpkin's very, very useful to support healthy progesterone. But so
Wow.
each of the ingredients at the first 14 days and the second 14 days help to support healthy estrogen, to build your lining and do all those things and regulate estrogen healthily. And then the seeds, the nuts and seeds for the second part of the cycle help to support healthy progesterone and support the second part of the cycle. So it's literally using food as medicine. That's what it is.
Do you think it works? It
It
works.
totally works. Food as medicine is the best way for you to be getting to be treating your body. You have to eat. So we might as well be using food in the right way to
Yeah.
nourish ourselves. So it is very important, and of course it works absolutely. I mean, you know that if you overdose on the wrong type of food, you feel awful,
That's so true. Yeah, that is true. That
right?
is true. Yep. As much as you love it, if you overdose, you feel bad.
Right.
This next question is also really good. Is it normal to have hormonal? Is it normal to have hormonal imbalances after giving birth? So,
Oh yes, it does take time for your body to find its groove again. Postpartum, definitely, but also for a lot of women, their life is so drastically different that the hormone imbalance are actually a result of lifestyle. If we're not looking after ourselves properly, then that can definitely translate into all sorts of symptoms. It is important to recognize that, if you had some imbalances pre pregnancy and you haven't addressed them, they're going to be there post pregnancy more than likely. So if say for example you had irregular cycles pre period, then it's something that we would want to pay close attention to, knowing that that is your predisposition. So it is very common to see imbalances. Obviously, pregnancy is a big deal. There's a lot
yeah,
that goes on. And depending on the birth, depending on your postpartum health, if you've breastfed, like there's so many facets to that can contribute to you being hormonally imbalanced. I think one of the most common things I see postpartum for a lot of women is heavy periods. And not
okay.
just in the short term, but actually in the long term. And that's often a result of estrogen not being regulated properly. So, again, what are your symptoms and what is your body telling you? It's a common time for us to see imbalances. We just need to steer our body back to helping it to perform
Yep.
so that we don't see these symptoms ongoing.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think you've addressed it. I feel like there are so many questions about PCOS.
Well,
Um,
I know, and always it's such a
yeah,
big topic because, but also not a. I mean, you either know you have it or you don't, or you know
yeah,
someone that does.
yeah.
That's for sure.
This lady asked if is there two parts to PC? Do we have two parts to PCOS?
Oh, I know what she'll be talking about.
Yeah.
So we used to look at PCOS as you either had the syndrome or you just had multiple follicles on the ovaries. We've stopped looking at it like that now. And I've just explained to you, we look at it under that umbrella as various types. So even if you don't have the syndrome, it's because you don't have true PCOS, but you might have one of the other types of PCOS. So you can have lean PCOS, you can have post pill PCOS, you can have post stress PCOS, you can have all types of PCOS, and the symptoms vary, and that's how we address it. So where she's talking about two parts is we used to look at you either you had the syndrome or you just had multiple follicles on the ovaries, but we don't really look at it like that anymore.
Okay. Does hyperthyroidism affect fertility?
Yes,
It does,
definitely. Yes, yes.
even though it's not a sex
Absolutely.
hormone.
No, because of the nature of the autoimmune of well, look, if you're hypothyroid, if you're Hashimoto's hypothyroid, so you have an autoimmune condition and that's why the thyroid isn't performing, then it can definitely impact fertility. It can impact fertility because of that. Anything autoimmune, the body is attacking itself. So that can be a factor if you're trying to have an embryo that's implanting each and every month, and your body's trying to, attack a foreign invader. It sees it as a foreign invader, then that can be a challenge. But also, I often see for women whose thyroid are hypothyroid, and it might just be a result of stress. It might not be Hashimoto's, so it might not be autoimmune. But I often see challenges with falling pregnant. So we fix the thyroid and we also improve fertility as a result of that. So I would highly recommend, if you are wanting to conceive and you have a thyroid issue, then it's a good idea to get that to a point where it can actually support a pregnancy. And I often see miscarriage can often go hand in hand with an unhappy thyroid. So
Oh,
that's the
wow.
reason we would want to make sure that gets sorted out, definitely.
Just off the topic, because I was actually looking at your website, right? And the needling thing, what do you call it? I've completely lost track. What is it called? I get it done all the time.
Acupuncture.
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 How does that
Yes.
help with fertility?
It's
How?
a good question. I mean, acupuncture has been used for over 3,000 years
Yes.
to influence and support the body. We know from a research, there's not a lot of research in acupuncture because there's not a lot of money to be made from researching acupuncture. I
Hmm.
can't see what they're really going to benefit. Um,
Hmm.
so there's not, but from the research that has been done, there are definitely certain points that they've researched that communicate. The main one that's been researched actually communicates with the vagus nerve, which is a nerve that goes from, it's very major from the top right down, and helps with inflammation in the body. So this is the one point that we know a lot about that helps to regulate and reduce inflammation of all kinds in the body because it does communicate with the vagus nerve, and it's a point in the leg that we use.
Okay.
We know that acupuncture does intercept the messages to the brain when it comes to pain and pain relief. I think we've accepted that. It can help with also muscle tension and muscle
Yeah.
pain, and it can promote recovery. We know
100%.
acupuncture, we know it increases blood flow. So that's another reason it helps with pain
Hmm.
and recovery. Um, Traditionally, the way that we look at acupuncture, I say to patients, if you can imagine, each organ has a meridian that runs down either the arm or the leg, and certain points on that meridian influence the way that that organ or that organ system works. So, for example, if your liver is overactive,
Mm-hmm.
um, and let's say in the example of liver illness or cirrhosis or something where
Hmm.
it's running in overdrive, we can use certain points to help to regulate it, to kind of calm it down and get it to perform. Well, the same
Okay.
with thyroid. It's very, very effective for treating the thyroid. But I think fundamentally what acupuncture does is it reduces stress within the body, and that's never going to be a bad thing, because if you can reduce
Yes.
stress, you can allow your systems to work properly.
Yep.
So there's many theories as to how it works, and it just depends on which school of thought that you're from as to how you utilize that to as a practitioner, how you
Yep.
utilize that to treat your patients. But they're the main
Yep.
ways that we traditionally look at
Yep.
acupuncture, and the more modern ways that we look at
Yep.
acupuncture as well.
I swear by acupuncture and dry needling because when I used to power lift, right, I used to get it every second week, once a
Mm-hmm.
fortnight, and
Mm-hmm.
it used to do wonders.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's many ways that it works, but I
Yeah.
think the main thing is it stood the test of time. It's been around for a really long
Yeah.
time.
Absolutely. Facial hair. Facial hair due to hormonal
Mm-hmm.
imbalance. Which
Mm-hmm.
hormonal imbalance, which hormone, if it is like, out of whack, would cause facial hair?
Yeah, testosterone definitely being that male. I mean, as females, we still need testosterone. We need it to make our other hormones, but it's when it's out of balance again that there's too much of it that we can start to see facial hair as a result of that. It is very tricky because there's certain ethnicities actually just have more body hair, and so we've got to look at, is it actually genetically just how you are, or is it that you actually do have more facial hair? And we're talking about, often you see it, more around the chin, longer hairs that are problematic, not necessarily the fluff that a lot of us don't love, but we have. They're two different things. So I think people tend to know if they have a hormone induced facial hair, also by the region of where it's growing. So it is definitely something you want to look at with testosterone and regulating testosterone efficiently. And also that can often be, as we mentioned before, there's an element of insulin that needs to be regulated to support testosterone as well. So it is treatable. It's about working out whether or not it is actually as a result of elevated testosterone or not.
Okay, perfect. Do you think estrogen and the other one, progesterone, do they play any part
Mm-hmm.
in hair growth?
In supporting healthy hair, yes, but not actual hair growth itself.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
This is a question. This lady, she sent me so many questions and she was like, Mariam, you need to, like, definitely ask this question. And then I'm just gonna one, two, three, and then we're gonna, that's it. I need to redo
Sure.
my intro and we're gonna do another episode.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's never gonna end.
I'll
It's true. We're gonna keep on going. But can you please promise you're gonna come back?
come back anytime.
No, you have to promise. You have to say, I
I know. I
promise.
promise. I
Okay.
promise I will come back. I
Okay.
promise.
That's okay. Then I can let you go.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. So this lady's question, because she kept on sending me the requests. She
She's
said,
committed.
she's like, Mariam,
Mhm.
please, please, please. Okay.
Yes.
She's had 3 C-sections,
Mm-hmm.
and she says that the entire month her bleeding will start, stop, on, off the entire
Oh,
month. She's had
okay.
three
Well,
C-sections. What's the issue?
she probably needs to make sure there's nothing crazy, which I'm
Yeah,
sure she already has.
yeah. You never
The
know.
reasons that we can see bleeding can be issues with our cervix. So you would definitely want to get that checked out. And if you haven't had a cervical screen, then that's something you should do to rule that out. We can see bleeding as a result of cysts or polyps are the main reasons that we can see the bleeding. Um, it's hard without having a lot more information as to, does she get a period? And then we can see bleeding at ovulation time. That's not an uncommon thing to see. There's not necessarily, that's nothing to worry about if we are seeing a little bit of bleeding or a bit of spotting at ovulation. But it does show that when we get a quick sway from estrogen to progesterone, we can see a little bit of bleeding then. And then I wonder if she's actually spotting in the lead up to the period, which again can be a result of progesterone tapering off too quickly. So there's a lot of reasons why she could be bleeding, and I don't have enough information to actually know. But she should explore some of those things, definitely get things checked out and screened. And if that's all fine, then we have to look at what hormone imbalances are existing for her. And it could be ovulation related, like I said. It could be progesterone related.
We
It
just
could just
don't
be
know.
that
We don't
her
have enough.
hormones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I
Yeah.
definitely would rule that out first. The other thing too, and you'll put these notes up, but any questions that you have, if you go and use the search bar on my website, if you type it's bleeding, you'll get a whole lot of information that might be more appropriate to you. Like, when you read something and you're like, oh, that's me. So I would also invite and encourage you to go and
Yep.
utilize the search function, because
And also,
there's
like,
years of information on there.
also on your Instagram, you do all these question answer sessions. Like I
I
do it
do.
every second
Yes.
day.
I love talking.
Yeah.
I love talking.
And you're
So,
very good at it. You're very good at explaining. So
oh,
that's also very
thank
good.
you.
Yeah. So I think they can also ask you on your Instagram. And
Yes,
then you can,
anything.
yeah.
Absolutely. Of course.
Do you think, this is the second last question, do you think
Mm-hmm.
being on the pill for a very long time and then coming off the pill, so I've noticed over here, especially like, in Western countries, they put you on the pill while you're a teenager, and then you're on the pill until you're ready to give birth, or until you're ready to be a
Mm-hmm.
mom, not give birth, but you're ready to
Mm-hmm.
conceive. And uh, do you think once you come off it, it doesn't affect your fertility? Can you get pregnant?
Oh, well, yeah. I only see the people in my clinic that it has affected their fertility. So my view of this is probably slightly skewed towards me saying it absolutely, I see it affect people's fertility. I think that comes down to our genetics. Are we I mean, our genes determine how we respond to things, and we can't actually know how you're going to respond until you actually use it and then come off it. Unless your mother has had an experience that you can utilize her experience to be probably similar to what yours will be. Um, I, I, as we said before, the pill definitely depletes essential vitamins and minerals. The only mineral it doesn't seem to deplete is iron, but all others, it definitely does deplete our vitamin and mineral stores, and it definitely upsets the gut microbiome. So, and any medication, all medications on some level, have an impact on gut health. So, for me, I think it's unfortunate for a lot of women that they'll only find out that their fertility is compromised when they come off, and it is time for them to want to conceive, and they're not getting a cycle back, they don't have their period back, or they're not, that their fertility has been somewhat compromised. There of course are also women that can go 25 years, come off the pill and fall pregnant the next month. So it really does depend on your genetics and your body and how it's responded to that. And there's no good answer really.
Okay, last one. You ready?
I'm ready.
Um, some of my friends, they said that they're in their late 30s and early 40s, and they've hit menopause, but not like proper menopause. What's the early stages of menopause? What do you call it?
Perimenopause.
Yep. So I think like even 45 is really young to be hitting menopause. No?
Are you ready for this?
I don't know if I'm ready. I'm 33, so
No, well,
let's
I'm
see.
about to tell you something. You don't need to freak out about this.
Okay, I'm listening.
So we all start to transition into perimenopause from 35, or around 35. It doesn't mean you're in menopause. You will remain in your perimenopausal years for upwards of 15 to 20 years.
Okay.
It's just the next phase that we enter.
All right.
Um, a lot of women are told that they're early menopause when they're not. They just have imbalanced hormones. In fact, I would say the majority of women, that, unless you have a true diagnosis that you've actually gone through early menopause, I find that most women haven't. And it's certainly something that we treat a lot of in the clinic because it essentially is a hormone imbalance. So, whilst you might feel like you are menopausal, chances are you're actually just experiencing hormone imbalance, and we need to sort that out, so that you can live happily and healthily for the next 20 years in perimenopause and it not be an issue at all.
Can you conceive in perimenopause?
Yes, 100%. That's what, if you see, this is what makes me laugh. We're told that our fertility declines in our 30s. If that was the case, why are so many women on birth control
Yeah,
into our
that's
30s
true.
and 40s, right? You can still definitely conceive.
You
Yeah,
can. Okay. So nothing to
100%.
be worried about. Look, not that I want to be
No.
popping kids
No,
anytime soon.
I help women have babies well into their mid to late 40s. So it's not, the time bomb is not ticking as fiercely as we're led to believe.
Yep.
But what does speed it up is stress. So we
Oh,
do have to come back to that again and learn how
yep.
to manage that better. And that's not always completely permanent either. So, I think that under the circumstances, anything can be supported, anything can be sorted out.
I feel like my uterus and like the inside of my body already feels 55.
Oh no, we don't want that for you.
I'm just kidding. I don't act like a 55-year, like I don't even act 33. My mom's like, stop acting and behaving like an 18-year-old. I'm like, Mama, I feel 18. Not No, that's not true.
I think we should all remain feeling and acting like children or teenagers forever.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much. I'm telling you, I'm in love
Thank
with
you.
you. I'm not even kidding.
Oh,
You've helped me so much. I feel like this was more for me than anybody else.
well, this is how we learn. And I think by being able to ask questions is really important. So I'm glad that you are able to be so open and ask the questions. And I'm going to just put this in here before you do, is that I'll very happily be back. I promise.
You promise, okay. As long as you promise, and I'm gonna, you know what? I believe in naming and shaming people on Instagram.
Oh, that's fine. I can't wait. I look forward to that.
I don't want to scare you. Okay.